Oh, you saw the message?
Yes, ma'am. She denied that in my face, and I'm looking at the message in the phone.
The message said, leave the back door open.
Be naked when I arrive.
Be naked when I arrive.
I'm not gonna lose her and I'm not gonna lose him, but then my mom comes in and it's killing her because we all grew up together. This is insane for them to even be together like this.
Ms. Cole, without being too graphic, are there any other details, specifics that you can share that would prove your case?
I can tell you how big his winker is. It's pretty small. No, it's not.
Mr. Smith brought his estranged wife to court today to prove that he is indeed the biological father of her 4-year-old daughter, Christina. He says he signed the birth certificate and has been her daddy since she was born. He knows that he is her father, and he is just here in court to prove it. Mrs. Kalita Smith says she might have allowed Mr. Smith to sign the birth certificate, but she knows that he is not actually the father of Christina.
And you know, I saw text messages, some photos between my wife and some other cat.
What did you see? What was the exchange?
Well, it was like, you know, I miss you. You know, when you miss a person, you know, apparently you've seen them before. You know, nude photos.
Nude photos of your wife or of the man?
Excuse me, Your Honor. I've never seen any of these alleged text messages that he's talking about.
And that is all we needed to know. It appears Mrs. Smith was cheating on our good man, Mr. Smith. Immediately he learned of this, he let his parents know and then left the house.
Found out I was pregnant. We were very excited. I told Christian we weren't together, and I thought that this could be a chance for us to reconnect and make our marriage work. And he agreed, and shortly after we got back together.
And so you found out you were pregnant, you told Mr. Smith, when you found out she was pregnant, were you happy about it?
Extremely happy.
You were extremely happy.
Extremely.
Well, Mr. Smith sounds like he was in love with Mrs. Smith, and in normal circumstances, that is enough to stop you from ending up in paternity court. But sometimes even love is not enough. He was so happy that he made sure he was there for the baby's birth, even though it was done through a cesarean section. He also signed the birth certificate and gave the baby his last name.
I know everything that goes on in my house, so it's just a CD that I see that's out of place. I'm like, I didn't put this in here. So the number that was on the CD, you know how people can pass out CDs?
Yes, their contact information.
Right, that number, it's just something about that number. I ain't forget about that number. And then I saw an Instagram name. So I immediately I look up their Instagram. So I'm scrolling, and I see somebody holding my daughter.
Wow. So Mrs. Smith did not stop her cheating ways. Mr. Smith says that the caption on the photo was of the man claiming Christina as his. That is insane. So who is this man?
Well, Your Honor, his name is Joseph. I actually met Joseph after we separated, and around the time I was very vulnerable, and he was the only one showing me any type of attention or any love, which I needed because I felt lonely around the time because my husband left me alone. So
you had sex with him?
Yes, ma'am.
If your husband leaves you because you cheated on him, the best thing to do is probably not to jump into another person's bed without protection when you know you are not divorced yet. Now, Mrs. Smith did not only do that, but she also told her husband that the baby she had by her side man was his when she knew that it could belong to her side piece. That is psychotic. And of course, Mr. Joseph is also in court today to say his piece.
We met in a public place, and I saw her walking, and she was in a stroller, and she just looked up at me with like a mischievous, like one of those things, and I was like, yo, you know me from somewhere? Like, that's when I felt like it might have been my daughter.
You did?
Yeah, there was something there, like she knew me already.
And so when you met her, did Miss Smith say to you, this is your child?
When I seen her, she looks like just like my dad.
And Mr. Smith can do nothing but watch as another man calls his daughter his own. He says he knew that Christina was his child, but he could not take responsibility for her because he was not in the right place to care for a kid. He would see her, spend time with her, and then send her back home to be provided for by Mr. Smith. And Mrs. Smith never let her husband know about this arrangement until he found out for himself.
And you'd always refer to yourself as daddy?
Yes, ma'am.
And all this time, Mr. Smith, you're also spending time with her?
Of course.
And having absolutely no idea this entire encounter occurred, still referring to yourself as daddy as well. Miss Smith, what kind of web you weaving?
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you time to think on it.
Now it's time to get to the bottom of this extraordinary story. Who's the father, Mr. Joseph or Mr. Smith? Let's see what the DNA test results have to say.
Pertaining to whether Mr. Smith or Mr. Prater, the biological father is Mr. Prater. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, I know that was not the news you wanted.
That's tough.
Oh, I know.
But it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. It's my baby.
Mr. Andrews says that Ms. Corbett forged his signature on the birth certificate of her 1-year-old son and that he's not the biological father of the child. Ms. Corbett insists that this is a lie and that Mr. Andrews is denying the child because he doesn't want to be responsible and because he has an overbearing mother. Let's hear about this forging business.
Mr. Andrews, why do you believe your signature was forged on Quinn Jr.'s birth certificate?
I don't know, Your Honor. I didn't sign anything, and somehow my name still managed to get put on the birth certificate. I have a copy of it right here.
Let me see that birth certificate. So you say somehow your name just appeared on the birth certificate?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Quinn Andrews Sr., name of father, right underneath. Take me back to that day. You believe somebody put your name on there?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, who could that person be? What a mystery. Anyway, let's ask Ms. Corbett how Mr. Andrews' name even got on that birth certificate in the first place.
Ms. Corbett, did you put his name on there?
No, it's no way possible for me to just put his name on a birth certificate. The only reason why he's saying that he did not sign the birth certificate is because his mother told him not to sign my child's birth certificate. I mean, anybody that has kids, and she should know because she has enough, knows that in order for the name to be on the birth certificate.
And all 8 of them is well taken care of, baby. Told my son not to sign a birth certificate until he get the blood test approved.
Well, this should be easy to clear up. There should be a witness who was there when Mr. Andrews signed this birth certificate, right?
Did you witness him sign it?
I was there.
So you were there. You saw him sign it.
Not just me. The lady who signed off underneath the birth
witness?
certificate. Yeah, she saw him too.
So what you're saying is he didn't do what his mother told him to do, so now he's saying he didn't sign it.
Exactly.
Excuse me, Your Honor. If he signed the birth certificate, his name would actually be signed on that form.
So you're saying there is no cursive signature?
No, at all.
It's only his name.
Oh, that's a good point. Anyway, it doesn't matter, as we will be getting the DNA test later. Now, Ms. Corbett says her relationship with Mr. Andrews was never a committed one, and that's because his mother was always meddling in their affairs. But his mama has a different idea.
I wouldn't even call it a relationship, Your Honor, because she slept with the whole damn city, the whole neighborhood.
Okay, let's use
Baby.
respectful language in the courtroom. You said you believe she was sleeping with...
She slept around with everybody in our neighborhood.
If that was true, I would have slept with her husband because he wanted me to.
Oh, Lord.
That's a lie.
We better stay on track because this is getting feisty. Anyway, Ms. Corbett says that Ms. Smith doesn't know anything about her, so she cannot possibly be a judge on whether she slept around or not. What does Mr. Andrews have to say about all the claims being made?
She was possessive. She was verbally abusive.
He says I was possessive and verbally abusive. This is the same one that is a cut that walks to the candy lady right through our house. Is 2 minutes away. Every time I'm walking through, he has to stand to the door and watch me like I'm a 2-year-old.
Negative. Your Honor.
He didn't want me to speak to anybody. I was not allowed to talk to anybody. I was not allowed to even befriend females because he said that was going to be using the excuse.
Your Honor, that's a lie.
Ah, well, we are going to see who the compulsive liar is today because someone certainly is. But the question is this: why does Mr. Andrew even doubt this child?
Your Honor, I doubt for the simple fact that while we was together, I happened to clean up the house one day where we stayed at. I found the empty Magnum wrapper under the sofa, which she claimed was mine, which it wasn't, because all of them we used, I throw away.
It was his.
Tell him about that day that you came home from work and she had another man running out the back door.
Yeah, like
Yes.
one of my third cousins told me that. His mother stayed right across the street from where we stayed at.
And
is this the diagram you
That's
submitted
mine.
to the court? Come up here, please.
Those are heavy claims, and Mr. Andrews has a diagram to prove those claims.
What does this diagram show?
This right here is a 2-story apartment building. This right here, is the driveway. 2 feet from the driveway is the front entrance. It's the same in the back. And right here is a slab and an empty field. There's no gate around this side of the house, but on this side of the building, it's a gate. And it's obvious, my cousin mama stayed right across the street. And you could sit right here and literally watch all this. And if somebody murdered him over here, it'd be real obvious. So obviously, the guy she had in there, she even had a bike in inside the house.
That's certainly illustrative, but there's no evidence that all of this happened, especially as it's hearsay. Ms. Corbett denies this entirely and says that never happened. She also says that they got back together after that incident, and it was never an issue until it came to denying the paternity of the child. Of course, Mr. Andrews says that's not true because, and you guessed it, Ms. Corbett is a compulsive liar.
Miss Corbett, did that happen?
No, and I told him that. He asked me about that. I explained to him that was not true. We was together after that.
Man,
this was never an issue till just now.
Man, she's a compulsive liar. Well,
I'll tell you one thing I'm not lying about, and that's him being the father of my child, and that's all. Once we figure that out, that's dead game. None of this is irrelevant.
All right, thank you, sir.
But Mr. Andrews isn't done. He says he even has more doubts, and he's got messages on his phone to prove it.
What
I
else?
found messages on her phone where some guy obviously was telling her, leave the back door open and be naked when I arrive.
Oh, you saw the message?
Yes, ma'am. She denied that in my face, and I'm looking at the message in the phone. That's one reason. The second reason, I found the Magnum wrapper.
The message said, leave the back door open.
And be naked when I arrive.
Be naked when I arrive.
What? 3 or 4 guys? What does Ms. Corbett have to say about this?
So you've outlined 4 pieces of doubt as to whether or not Quinn is your biological child. Ms. Corbett, so you are saying that these allegations are not true.
They are
you
not
did
true.
not sleep
The
with
only
these
reason
men.
why he is saying that is because he is standing on side of her. And the other time, whenever I talk to Quinn, I don't hear none of this.
You're a compulsive,
Me and Quinn-
habitual liar.
me and
Stop
Quinn-
lying.
Ms. Corbett says none of that ever happened, and she says she asked the guy who told Mr. Andrews about the incident of a guy running out of her house, and he said he never told him that. But then that guy told Ms. Corbett that Mr. Andrews had slept with his girlfriend, which is just way too much drama. Anyway, Ms. Corbett insists that Mr. Andrews has always complained to her about his mother.
Your Honor, she's telling a lie. She's the
She
problem.
is the
I
problem.
don't
She's
even
the
interfere
problem.
in my son's life, Your
At
Honor.
all.
I let him
Yes,
live
he
his
does.
own
Quinn
life.
has told me
She
that she
don't.
has told
She
him
don't.
that if he come
Stop
back and
lying.
talk to me and stuff like that,
Stop
that she was
lying.
gonna cut him off.
So you
It's the time
believe
Quinn has been sitting
his
in my house.
mother is standing in between the relationship he could potentially have with Quinn Jr.
She does not want Quinn to have his own children because that would mean that he would have to stop taking care of her.
There's so much anger and resentment here, and where there's that, there's also intimate energy. So Judge Lauren asked the million-dollar question.
Are you all still sleeping together now?
No, man.
No.
She stayed trying to seduce me, though. I got messages right now on my phone, but she trying to seduce me like every week.
So how many times have you seen Quinn Jr.?
Like over a dozen times.
So you spent quality time
Yes,
with
ma'am.
him.
He does not.
Your Honor.
Your Honor,
I have to beg him for to come
He been
get
at my
my
mother's
child.
house like 7 times.
He was there 6 days.
It's time to get to the bottom of this. Who's the father, Mr. Andrews, or some other man? Let's see what the DNA has to say.
Mr. Andrew, you are the father.
Let it be known.
I'm done with the drama and the nonsense. I've heard too much testimony today that makes me seriously nervous. This child's 5 months old. If you had doubt before, that's done now. This is your child.
Your child.
So, you both have a hand and a responsibility to raise this child accordingly, but you gotta figure out how to do it.
Mr. Webb and his girlfriend insist that there's absolutely zero chance that he fathered the defendant's 16-month-old child, Majestic. And that's because he never actually slept with the defendant. The defendant, Ms. Cole, says that's impossible, and she's 100% certain that Mr. Webb is indeed the father. She says the only reason he's denying paternity is because he doesn't want to ruin his relationship with his girlfriend.
I never had sex with her, Your Honor.
Well, that would rule you out. You've never had sex with her?
No,
Yeah, he did.
she's a liar. She's crazy.
Ms. Cole, we've heard a lot of defenses in this courtroom. Rarely have we ever heard that you've never had sex with her.
She's absolutely crazy.
So you think she's just making this up?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
If you've never had sex, why are you here?
I know for a fact.
Well, it looks like Ms. Cole is crystal clear about who had sex with whom. Mr. Webb says that he was only ever friends with Ms. Cole, and they were never intimate. He even says he never stayed in her bedroom, but Ms. Cole thinks another thing entirely happened.
I can't exactly remember, but I know that it was a night that we was partying.
Oh, yeah, right. He ain't like that.
Your
You'll
Honor,
see.
the worst that we've ever done is take a picture, and she was already in the bathroom. She had called me in there. When I walked in the bathroom, she said cheese and took a picture before I could even say anything. I didn't even want to take that picture. That's how crazy she is. She posted
There's more than one.
Shut up. She
There's more
posted it
than
on
one.
Facebook, and when I told her to take it down, she refused to because she's crazy.
Wow, it seems Ms. Cole's mother has some really strong feelings about this case. Mr. Webb denies all of this and gets Mrs. Cole screaming again.
You
You're
are
a liar.
a liar,
You are a
my
liar.
mom.
Everything that
You're
you're
a
saying.
liar.
She was on the phone with me
You're a liar.
5-6 times
You're
a
a
day.
liar.
Why was Mr. Webb living with you?
He's a punk bum. We
Honor, I would-
supplied everything for them. Their food, everything. Everything.
Why were you living there?
I wasn't living there. We were hanging out for a week and a half. And on top of that, April 18th, I had moved back to Detroit. How was I there for 3 months?
But somehow, Mr. Webb's stories do not seem to add up. It doesn't sound like he was just hanging out. It sounds like he needed somewhere to stay. Anyway, Mr. Webb's girlfriend and Ms. Cole also get into it.
I don't do that type of stuff.
I've known him for 7 years, and he is not like that at all. And you
Yeah,
called
he
me,
does.
and you called me with his friend telling me that he was there for 3 weeks, and you guys were having sex, and blah, blah, blah. At first, I did believe that. But then I heard
You
his
believe
story, and
for
none
sure
of
on
it. Shut
the
up,
phone.
I am talking.
Hold on, let's be respectful.
So anyway, she was telling me that they were sleeping together and stuff. He wasn't even there for 3 weeks. He was there for a week, maybe a week and a half.
Just over there.
Yeah, it still doesn't add up. Mr. Webb still says he went over to Ms. Cole's house, hung out for about a week and a half, threw a party, and then dipped after without ever sleeping with her. Ms. Cole says that wasn't how it happened, and that one night they did the deed.
She had sent me an ultrasound saying that's a 3D photo. Tell me she don't look like you. Are you that crazy? How crazy are you that do I look like an ultrasound? Well, I got on Google because I don't know much about baby stuff. So I'm thinking, is that a thing now? So I said, Tasha, you're crazy. We didn't blink. I'm not the father to your baby. Please leave me alone. And that was then I just didn't want to deal with her anymore. I still don't.
However, Ms. Cole says that Mr. Webb told her cousin that he was the father of the baby. But Mr. Webb denies that and says that he thinks Ms. Cole is just obsessed with him and wants him to be the father. Ms. Cole says the only reason she's in paternity court is to know whether Mr. Webb is the father of her child or whether the child belongs to her former partner.
No, I told you there was another possibility, and I told the other possibility
But you also
there was
told them
another.
that you were 100% sure that I was the father. You and your mom said that.
Wait a minute, Miss Cole.
Look, she looks just like him.
That baby's white. He is dark.
I'm sorry, but I'm Puerto Rican.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say.
Miss Cole.
What?
You're saying that you were honest, and don't say what.
I'm sorry. Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, let me take a breath.
Mr. Webb doesn't believe this happened at all, but Ms. Cole has a pretty convincing reason why she's now sure that Mr. Webb is the father.
I was for certain that the other guy was the dad until my due date got changed a month ahead, which would make him the dad. It went from February 22nd to January 28th.
You submitted a calendar to the court, am I correct? Oh, you have another copy. Jerome, let me see that, please.
Mr. Webb still denies it, even though Ms. Cole remembers how the entire experience was.
She has literally made herself believe. She made herself believe these lies that she's telling.
But Mr. Webb says he never slept with you.
And he did.
But he did.
For sure, yeah. It was a lousy, 20 minutes. I'm so sorry, Your Honor.
Okay, there was 2 witnesses there that said that they never had sex at the party.
Well, at least it wasn't a lousy 5 minutes. That would have been far worse. What if Mr. Webb had gotten drunk and slept with Ms. Cole and just didn't remember? That could have happened during the nights of partying that they had, right? But Mr. Webb says that's not possible.
Ms. Cole, without being too graphic, are there any other details, specifics that you can share that would prove your case?
I can tell you how big his winker is. It's pretty small.
No, it's not. I could tell you plenty of times.
It's about that
I've known
big.
him for 7 years.
It's
No,
about that
definitely
big.
not. Definitely not. And don't you dare!
Wow, that's a lot. Well, it's time to see what the DNA test has to tell us about this case. Who's the liar here, Mr. Webb or Ms. Cole?
Mr. Webb, you are not her father.
But I want a lie detector.
Listen, we don't clown in this courtroom. I know you probably feel relieved, vindicated, but at the same time, there's a beautiful young baby whose life and paternity is still at issue. Ms. Cole, you stood firm in your testimony that you were intimate with Mr. Webb.
Yes.
And this other guy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Walters says that the defendant is her 3-year-old son's father, and she wants him to step up. Mr. Rogers, the defendant, says this is false, and that he has spent 2 months in jail for missing child support payments for a child that he insists doesn't belong to him. He is here with his mother to prove that he isn't the father.
I slept with another man weeks prior to even conceiving my son, and we did use protection. And at the time I conceived my son, he was the only person that I was having sex with without using protection. I've known them for 20 years now. We grew up together. We did family vacations together, holidays. Our families were always together. We grew up, we dated. That didn't really work out in middle school. The feelings came back once we got in high school, and we started sleeping together again.
So they were having unprotected intercourse in secret. When Mr. Rogers got news that Ms. Walters was pregnant, he told her congratulations and immediately asked her to congratulate the father. He says never for once believed that he was the father of her baby.
Because she was in a relationship with this other guy, so why would it automatically be mine? You know what I'm saying?
But were you sleeping with her during the window of conception?
Yes, ma'am. We had slept together.
I was not in a relationship, Your Honor, with anybody.
She says she's pregnant. You say good luck to you. And now you by yourself.
It was hard. He didn't come to any doctor's appointments. I was doing it by myself. And then once I got maybe 7, 8 months, I'll be there if he's mine. I'll take care of him. Don't put me on child support. Once I had him, he came to the hospital. He left the hospital before my son was born.
Mr. Rogers' mom says that their families were really close, but the pregnancy has ruined all of that because Mr. Rogers insists that he's not the father.
We was best friends growing up, literally best friends.
She was like one of my children, Your Honor.
Ever since this happened, it's just completely killed everything.
tore
Our
us all
families
apart.
don't hang out no more.
And so, Ms. Sanders, I can see this is really upsetting.
And I apologize for that.
No, you don't have to apologize. You're upset because first you had no idea.
No, I would have never allowed them to spend days and nights and all in my house because to me they were like brother and sister.
Oh, you can see how all of this would completely ruin the family dynamics. Let's see how that looks from the perspective of Mrs. Rogers.
Did you know if Miss Walters was intimate with anyone else?
Yes, later on I did because I found a bunch of condoms in her stuff when I went through it. Because I checked
And
all
Your
the
Honor,
kids
that was
for
from the health
drugs.
department. They give you condoms at the health department, and that was right after I had went to the health department. I went to her house.
But the bottom line is, when you found them, you said to yourself, she must be sexually active now.
Yes, Your Honor.
But you weren't aware of that before.
I had heard that.
Despite hearing the rumors, Mrs. Rogers says that and doesn't think that her son could be the father. She says immediately she was informed that there was a chance. She asked her son, and he told her that he wasn't the father, so she took him at his word.
All right, I was not in the delivery room when he was born, so therefore my name is not on that birth certificate. I've had no DNA but DNA established the whole time he has been in this world. How am I on child support? I was out of town working when the court date was set up for the DNA test. So I missed the court date, automatically rules me as the father.
Yes.
I'm thinking, how am I on child support? There's been no DNA, no birth certificate signed. There's no connection to me and that boy.
Well, that's how default judgment works. If you don't show up, you immediately become the father. And since Mr. Rogers didn't pay child support, he was arrested and locked up for 2 months.
I ended up going to this little country jail where, I don't know, it's not even a jail, it's a little barn thing. And they locked me up there for 3 days. They don't feed you on the weekends, but like 2 times a day, and it's these little bitty I don't even know what it was, to be honest with you, Your Honor. Then I had to wait till Monday for Monroe County to drive down there and pick me up and transport me back to Monroe County where I sat 2 months.
That's what happens when you don't pay child support, Mr. Rogers. Next, we have Ms. Walters' best friend, Ms. Rochelle Rogers, who's also Mr. Rogers' sister, in court to give her testimony.
Do you believe your brother is Ryland's father?
No, ma'am.
Why?
Well, because at the time we were all young, we all done our different things, we were all partying. We were together every day, all the time. Every time we went out together. We done everything together. I was aware of her sleeping with the other guy. She also stated the next morning that she did sleep with him.
Ms. Rogers says that the other person is more likely to be the father of the baby and not her brother. Her reason is that Ms. Walters didn't know who the father could be when she got the pregnancy test, but now is claiming that Mr. Rogers is certainly the father.
When she realized she was pregnant.
Yes.
And in that moment,
Yes.
she admitted to you that there were 2 possible fathers.
Yes, which I knew before because of the party, and she did tell me that she slept with the guy the morning after she slept with him, and that was, weeks prior to this happening, of course, weeks prior to her finding out she was pregnant.
Well, that's a lot to take in, but the DNA test is here now, and it's time to get to the bottom of this. Who's the father, Mr. Rogers or some other man?
Mr. Rogers, you are his father.
I'm sorry.
Both of you all burst into tears in that moment. What do you feel?
Your Honor, I grew up without a father, so I know what it's like. And I told myself from day one I was not going to be that person. And now that I know him as father, I can step up and actually be his father.
Good. How do you feel, Ms. Walters? Are you happy?
My son deserves to have his father there.